Welcome back to For a Better Day podcast. I am joined here with my two fellow friends and coaches, Nick and Kyle. Kyle has been on the podcast twice before. I don't think that original episode, the first one I ever recorded, I'd have to find that in the memory banks. It's not on YouTube. But he was on the unedited addiction episode, and then I've been trying to get Nick on for a while. Didn't work out, but we're finally having him on. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
If you guys just want to introduce yourselves, just so people are familiar with whose voice is whose.
I guess you already know my name is Nick, so.
Yeah, but they didn't know who
they
was
don't
Nick.
know that, though. They've never met
I said
you.
Nick and Kyle, so they
Okay.
don't know you.
Well, this voice is Nick. Never been on the podcast before.
Just a consumer of podcasts.
Yeah. High consumer. So it feels pretty good to be on one, actually. Should I give like a background of myself?
Yeah, well, let me give a little. We're pretty much just going to be winging it, just letting it go natural. We're going to talk a lot about soccer predominantly, but I'm sure some of those tangents will spring off into how we live
life, man.
Yeah, football is life, so how we live life, and like kind of probably usually when we talk about soccer, then all of a sudden we're talking about our backgrounds and how we grew up and how we wish we did things different and why we coach the way we do and why we live the way we live. So
Well, I think, and I'm Kyle, by the way. I dressed up for the podcast. I very rarely go on tangents, but I think that they're related, like background, how you've grown up, your family dynamic also relates to how you play the game / coach.
But yeah, I would want
opinion.
to hear. Let's start with Nick. Just how you got into the game and why you love it and why you coach now.
Oh boy. Okay. So I first got into the game, the beautiful game of soccer, football, foosball. Back it was very late for me compared to everybody else, but I started playing recreational, which is not very competitive, in 10th, 11th grade of high school. And at that point, I didn't really love too much else besides video games and spending time with my family, but
And the Dropkick Murphys.
and flogging Molly.
That's who it was.
And it was a friend of mine who actually just kind of casually asked me to join, maybe out of like camaraderie, or like maybe he had a sense that I, kind of needed something to get me out of my shell or something. And shout out to Zach Fleetman. I'll have to thank him for that again eventually, but I'd say if it wasn't for his invite, I might not be here right now. So that's pretty important to get out there. But yeah, I mean, it was great because like the team that I got on for that, like I knew most of the people, and I was getting to know you, and I was getting to know Ethan Katz.
Yep.
And I think
Yeah, he's one of the ones I dragged into it.
yeah, dude, his hair was so fluffy.
Well, that's what we called him. Everybody called him
The
hair.
fluff.
His
Oh,
hair.
okay,
Or at least
fluffy.
that's at least when we started. Like the high, I think the seniors before you guys gave him that nickname and kind of stuff. Maybe you guys called him Fluffy, but
I think
at
I
one
did.
point it was Hair. Was his name as well.
Just to get back. Yeah. Yeah, it just it was cool because like I didn't feel completely isolated, or like it helped knowing people and getting to know them, especially we all shared our nerdy like interests and quirks, and our love of Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, whatever, all those things. And it also helped that my first season of recreational, we went undefeated, and not because we played really well, but just because one player was kicking and running.
Who was that?
Peter Kissel.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which, he was a talented kid, but the reliance on one player just, it's hard to get away from when that's all that's being taught. But it felt good because, you know, you feel like you're contributing to an undefeated season, which, you know, I guess I did just by being athletic. But that plays into my coaching philosophy later on. But so from there, like, you know, I fell in love with it. It helped that when I was...
So during rec, you fell in love with the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, there were other components. Like, I was also taking a German class in high school. And my German teacher, Herr Haller, he had, like, you know, national Die Mannschaft posters on the walls in there, and he had Dortmund posters and Bayern Munich posters. And, you know, I started playing soccer at the same time, and I'm just like, oh, these things are like correlating. And I've always had a love for Europe, and that like tied into it. And it was just going uphill from there. Not that I got super good, because, you know, I had a lot to learn very, very late, starting a new sport. But the love is for the playing, and just the culture of it was just so fascinating. And I don't even know where it came from, but somebody, I think one of the coaches or one of the players has said something like, maybe like a professional coach or player said something like, you know, you never stop learning new things about this. Like, it's always evolving, so therefore there's always something new to be learned or to adapt to, or to perfect, you know, technically. Or there's always like more than one solution to a problem on the pitch, and that provides so many different variables of how to go about winning a game, and trying to meet like a common goal as people. So it was really interesting. And then I guess after graduating, just kept playing like at Red Rose and Lanco, and I started doing my own research on YouTube and just kind of figuring out what things help, like physically, like strength and conditioning. I started going to this gym called McMillan's Training Systems, and I met people there that really helped me, like physically, like meet like others, like amateur professional players, like athletically. But then I started realizing like, oh, like my touch on the ball is more important, because that's where the most mistakes came from. It wasn't lack of speed or like you know, like I've always been pretty scrawny, but like I'm still able to like win the ball back from people and really push, like try and push through brick walls even if I can't. It's just, you know, the touch and comfortability and the decision making is what I found most important later on. And that was really difficult, just because like in America, like it's always been athletes before players, which also ties into my coaching philosophy later on. And it was just a big learning experience, just because like it was a new game, and I'd never had a huge self-confidence or self-belief in myself, and falling in love with something like this gave me some of that for myself. And I never felt that with anything, and it felt like a good sign. So I stuck with it and I met Kyle through all of those things, and Kyle was actually the one to reach out to me about coaching. And because we were on the same Lanco team, right, at Lanco.
Yeah, I had no one else to ask. So no, yeah, we were on the same Lanco team, and I was one of the very few people. Nick never did this again, but he fronted the money for that season.
I learned my lesson.
Everybody learns their lesson.
And I had a heck of a time getting that money back. And I remember one of the first conversations we talked about was like, hey, you know, thanks for, because I paid him right away, and he was surprised. Yeah, and I had the opportunity to coach a rec team, and I needed someone to help me. And most of the kids that I played with in high school were at college, or they weren't very nice people, and I didn't really want to coach with them, one or the other. And I was like, hey, maybe try Nick, see what happens. And I will say for him that he was not a very good player, but he came so far that he's now a great player. And no, seriously though.
No, it's true.
And he also didn't, like, when we first started coaching, like, my personality is very, like, dominant. And he kind of, like, was underneath that shadow. And then...
Well, I knew that. So, therefore, I had to flow with it. And because, like, I mean, I didn't have any confidence as a coach.
Well, right. That's the second thing, is that you didn't. So, I kind of took the reins. And then I forget. It's hard for me to trust people. Like, really trust them. And then I forget what it was. But at some point, I was just kind of like... Now this is a thing that we're doing together. And I was kind of like, what do you think?
I've not experienced Nick not being confident.
Whatever
you
I don't know want to do. Like. Yeah. That was a long time ago. And now it's like, yeah, exactly. And then at some point I was just like, yeah, like whatever you think we should be doing, let's do it.
Honestly, it's intimidating. Well, I'm the new one coming in, and then I'm watching you run practices, and like I have this down, and I've been looking into this, and sometimes it doesn't even look like you're looking at anything. Your brain's just coming up with it. I'm just like, yeah, this guy's leaving. Oh,
I know.
Shit,
we're gonna be found out. We're gonna be found out.
Nah, man. I'll tell you this now, man. Like as long as the love for the sport is there, like you will find what you need, because that's just what happens with me. I'm just like, from every game I'm just like, okay, like we didn't do this very well, so like I'm gonna like think of maybe like things we've done before, or like what professional teams do, and just kind of tone it down a bit, and then how can we simplify it and make it something for our team, because we can't just do technical stuff. We can't just do like, I guess we could just do tactical stuff because that's where they're at, but it does have to be a mix of both things. But yeah, no, dude, it was pretty terrifying the first year of coaching, because like I didn't even have the confidence as a player yet. Like being on the Lancaster Lions, like as a semi-professional team, was like that was the most professional I've ever done anything.
And that was fine when we were coaching rec. Like, it was, like, cool. But then we coached rec for, like, 3 seasons. I think it was, like, spring, fall, spring. And then, like, the next fall is when we started coaching travel.
Really?
Yeah. It was only 3 seasons. And that's when I know you felt out of your element. I also felt out of my of my element, because for some reason it was just like more weight, and it was like more serious, and it was like, and like
give or take it was, but
I mean, you could just lose every single game,
right?
And nobody's going to say anything. No parent's going to be like,
no,
what's
yeah,
going
and the parents
on?
don't even know. And at least with travel, like you have some parents that have played, and like there's some sort of expectation. They drop $1,000 a year, so you got to win some games, right?
Right.
And we actually had a meeting the first season with a bunch of parents, and basically it was us in a room with Marcos, who was a great mentor for us, and the parents of the kids we coached, and basically they were like, all right, this, and this is what you're doing wrong. This is what we're going to help you with. We don't understand this. We don't understand that. And we were just like... Plus,
it was pretty humbling.
Yeah, it was a very humbling experience, and seeing other coaches, like the way that Nick is now, like we were watching coaches, just like it just flew by like seamlessly. Like there was no, it looked like they weren't even trying. We were intimidated because we were like looking at notes, and we were like scrambling around trying to set up cones, and we were like, now we're just like,
well,
do it.
It just comes with the experience though, because I think I stopped like relying so much on, where I started trusting what I knew more, I should say, with practices and trainings and games, maybe like about last year. or maybe with our second team that we got, because after the first year, it's just like, okay, like we have this next team for 3 more years. Like we need to do this, this, and this. And I think the summer before we started with our new team, I always go to Long Beach Island with my family, and I wrote down what was that, like a curriculum for
Basically,
like players.
Yeah. It also helped that we went to get our license.
Yeah, absolutely.
The instructor we had was great. He was from Colombia, and he was like not American, so it was helpful in regards to soccer. And that's when they talked about developing a plan for how your team is going to be, not necessarily like it was like season plan, then it was like year plan, 2 seasons, and then it was like multiple seasons. Mm-hmm. How do you create a team that's like, so 3 years from now, they're going to play the way that you want them based on this first training session that you've created in year 1. And then you went to Long Beach Island.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that weekend of earning that license was it was a nice experience, because like the affiliation with the US Soccer, like that was the first kind of inside look that I got. I don't know about you, Kyle, but that was just like, okay, like, you know, they have people, they have people that know what they're talking about, but I think it's just sometimes the culture gets in the way of maybe what it could be, like what US Soccer could be. But it was cool because I learned a lot about myself, because like we had to develop our own session for the final day around
a topic.
Around a theme. And I got one that was like crossing the ball in from the wide lanes, and
that was it. Like that was the
you had to
receiving to turn.
Yeah, and it's great because it can be that simple.
Right.
Like find a theme, develop a session around it, make sure you have 3 coaching points about what you want the boys to absolutely take away from, or that you need to focus on just communicating with them during training. And it was great because like even with that seems like a small list, but like when you try and implement that stuff, like it feels a lot easier for you to like coach, because you have a focus point, or at least a few, and then everything else that happens, like, you know, since mine was around crossing the ball in from out wide, like anything else that kind of happened was like, all right, like, yeah, that could be worked on, but like, you know, crossing the ball in needs to be worked on more, or like that needs to be the focus. Everything else can be worked on in a different session. Not that those things will be like ignored, but it made things in my mind just a bit simpler when I started thinking about future trainings, and like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe if it did that for you too, Kyle, but.
Well, I remember that we had to make a coaching philosophy.
Oh yeah.
And that was something that was strange to me. I didn't know what that meant. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I didn't really know what it meant, if I even had one. And then,
what would you say your coaching philosophy is?
Well, we got to the point where we went to, after our license, we went to a seminar at F&M, run by the F&M coach Dan Wagner, and basically his whole thing was, I always play games in training, and that kind of stuck with me in regards to, so like, the philosophy that I have, and I think that Coach Nick shares, is that very rarely, this is for probably U13 and up, very rarely are you going to find yourself passing in a square under no pressure.
Right.
So why are we going to do a drill that does that? Let's make it a 4v2 at the very least, because that might be realistic in the game. So everything that we do is based around the actual playing of the game. That's why we do 6v4 plus the goalkeeper and then 2 neutral players, and put them in a shape and moving towards the goal to make it realistic, because that's what's going to happen in the game. And with the whole idea of athletes players before athletes, it's that like in American soccer, and I speak from a limited source, they don't think about those things. We don't think about like situationally and like decision making, and it's a lot harder in my opinion. Like passing in a square is great when you're 5 years old and you want to figure out how your first touch affects your second touch.
Yeah.
But when we're being pressed in our defending third when we're 15 years old and we have to play the ball out under half a second's worth of time, that square passing drill without any pressure isn't going to help us.
Right. Exactly.
Working on that in a training session and simulating as close as you can to what's going to actually happen. So that's where the philosophy for me comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
I want to dive into just a little bit of your background, of
Sure.
how you've come to love the game and how it was. What was your life around the game when you were growing
sure.
up? Because we got the background of both of your coaching now.
Yeah,
so.
right. No, that's great. I think, well, like unlike Nick, I grew up around it. My dad played and he coached me from a young age, and then I was able to play travel and experienced high school soccer. My brother played academy, so I was introduced to like a high level of soccer, like probably the highest level of youth soccer. Like at an early age, I saw what that meant, what that looked like when my brother was playing against the New York Red Bulls academy, and what legitimate youth soccer in the U.S. does look like in certain areas and could. And yeah, school soccer. I played middle school. I made varsity sophomore year. Had 3 years. Didn't really play a whole lot. I played the most my sophomore year. Played in a state semifinal game where I almost shit my pants with how nervous I was. A quarterfinal, I think it was a quarterfinal. And yeah, always like played. Never really thought about coaching. Never really thought about anything beyond that. Very much in my head about playing. Very much worried about. I was a goalkeeper, so I was very much worried about making mistakes, and I was a crazy player. Like I was crazy. I was aggressive. I came off my line. I did a lot of crazy things. I made some crazy saves, but then also let goals in that I probably shouldn't have let in. But yeah, I basically grew up with it. And my brother played, and my dad coached and supported me, and that's what we did on weekends. We went to soccer.
Did you love it in that moment, or was there a point later if that happened that you fell in love with it?
I feel like I guess I took it for granted for a while. It was just something that I did and that I enjoyed, certainly, but because I was so caught up in my head a lot of the time, I wasn't present in the moment and able to enjoy it. I was always like worried about like, am I going to get subbed in? Are they going to get a shot? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? What happens if they play the ball back to me? What happens if I have to come out for this cross? Like in my head constantly, and it took me away. It wasn't until I went to college and had the opportunity to train with the Lycoming college team and basically do what's called a walk-on, where you're not on, you just show up and start playing, where I was able to let go of some of that fear and that anxiety and the mental craziness in my head. But honestly, I fell in love with the game late, like Coach Nick did, but I fell in love with it when I was coaching. I never really fell in love with it when I was playing. It was always something but I've never loved the game more than I do now. And I fell in love with it in coaching because like the first year or two, I loved being the center of attention and being the coach and being the guy that like calls the shots. And I still love that. But it's developed, it's become something that's bigger than myself, that we're all in together.
Right.
And that the most beautiful thing to me about the game and what I love about it the most is that any team can beat any team.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. And the other thing that I love and also hate is that there's a lot of intangibles based on emotion and outside factors, whether it's the weather or the crowd or the temperature, like whatever, that affects the game. Because you can use those things to your advantage. Mm-hmm. Because it is about emotion. And I'm the type of person, I'm a feel my way through things guy. I try not to think my way through things, because if I think my way through, I'll end up in a dead end, and then a cul-de-sac, and then another dead end. So I feel my way through things. And to express myself, like, emotionally through coaching, whether it's I'm screaming for no reason, trying to urge the team on in the pouring rain, like this morning.
Yep.
Or just trying to, like, buddy up to the kids and be like, listen, like, that sucked, but, like, we're here for you.
Right.
That's when I fell in love with the game.
Yeah, I'll just give a little bit of my own background here, because we're all...
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, we should include Nate in this as well, since he is...
Well, it's not like what I just did with the testimony thing. I didn't do a lot of talking, but I'm very much involved coaching with you guys and involved playing with you guys over the years.
Yep.
I've played for a good bit of my life. I think it started around middle school, and I remember going to like a Lanco camp over the summer to like work on technical stuff. But like you guys have known just from me sharing a little bit of like my background, like no self-esteem as a kid and just quitting things when it got hard, always comparing myself to other people to the point where now I'm believing like there's something different about them, that they can be good at something. So taking that into soccer, like I have that anxiety going to this camp and like everybody around me's better, I can't do this. Like I tried to do this thing where you just had to do like an around the world, like juggled up to the left foot, to the left thigh, onto the head, onto the chest. I'm not sure if the chest is involved, but down to the right thigh, down to the right foot. That was
which
the
I would
challenge.
say from a coaching perspective would never happen in a real game, so we would never do it, right?
Right. Well, yeah, but that was just to like we're working on touches, like because when I finally got down to it later in life and like worked on my juggling to like at least get like 100 touches, I never even got to it, but like the work I put into it helped my first touch. But I was never doing any of that kind of stuff. But so like I didn't go into advanced soccer, and then that just led because like I'm just not good. So but I still wanted to play, so we played rec, and all my friends played rec, and we all wanted to be on the same team. So that was just what I did. But it was in 2010 for me when it became more than just a game, and I watched the 2010 FIFA World Cup and watched the U.S. team just kind of go against the odds. Like they weren't favored or anything, but they had to get 2 results in the last 2 games of the group, and they had to come back to get a 2-2 draw. And then Landon Donovan had that last-minute winner against Algeria, I believe it was.
Slovenia.
Was it against Slovenia? Or Algeria was the 2-2 draw, maybe. Okay. I never went more ballistic about anything in my entire life. Ethan was there for that. We watched that game together. And I was like a diehard Steelers fan, and football was the better sport to me, even though I played soccer. And even the Steelers winning the Super Bowl never did anything. So there was just something about that moment. Everything was going against them. It was the last minute, just like the belief to go on and just seeing something impossible kind of happen. And I don't know, something just triggered in me. And then I took that into like, we're always playing pickup and playing World Cup. And I wanted to be better, at least for rec. There was something in me to push forward in that. And there wasn't a lot of things in my life that were pushing me to be better at anything. But I still, and that's why I took to the senior year where it's like, I'm going to actually try to make the varsity team. We had a friend, Cameron, who's a very physically fit guy, very healthy, knows how to like put regiments together, and we tried to train with him to make the team. I did one of the couple of walk-on sessions they did over the summer for the varsity team. That was one of my proudest accomplishments, was like scoring a goal during that session. But I got out of my routine and wasn't running as much, and I didn't make the team or anything. But I tried, and I knew it was like, oh, it's later in life. And then after I graduated, it kept growing as something I wanted to do. I even had an experience coaching a rec team with Jared at one point, which that was really cool, and just connecting with people and teaching them like the really bare basics and trying to lift people up. That like you don't have to be like me and believe that you're inferior anyway. It's just about that kind of work. So that was like, that kind of grew my passion as well. And then I started actually putting work into it. I tried to make the Lancaster Lions at one point. But
I
think I made the initial team, but then they're just like, we need $600, and that wasn't happening at the time.
Unfortunately, I paid that.
I didn't know that I was gonna have to pay, so I was like, "Oh, cool, you made it. Here, I need this money." But see, I was still in a bad mindset at this time, where like I could, if I wanted to pursue that, like I could have asked somebody who like cared about me, like, "Do you want to help me like pursue like something I want to chase after?" But I was just like, "Oh, just." I hit roadblocks and I fold, and that's what I did then, and continue to do in life. And but soccer was just something that other than like my faith, like that was the only thing where like I could believe in something that was impossible. And then there was moments even in rec, in some indoor games, and in an outdoor, or when I mean outdoor, I mean like the summer league that I play in at LCBC.
Mm-hmm.
Where I've never had it in any other moment in life where I almost feel like I can predict the future in a way. In the way that I don't know how to explain this. I'll explain it from the game that we played against you, Nick, in LCBC when we were down like 2-0 at halftime or whatever it was. I was playing goalie because like we had all these people not show up, and I went to halftime. I'm like, guys, I can't play goalie. Like I have to be on the field because we need to win this to make playoffs. Which, spoiler alert, like. It ended up not mattering. We didn't make playoffs from that game. Our captain was wrong in his calculation, so the celebration wasn't warranted. But
you got to cut that part out when you edit this.
What?
So no one will know.
Oh, that's fine. But like when we were playing, I didn't know that going in, and I'm just like, I just had this feeling that I'm gonna will this into existence, and not that it was just from me, but. I felt that it was going to happen, and I knew it was going to happen, and then it happened, and we won. And I don't know how to explain those feelings, because they don't always happen to me, but there's been games where I have these feelings that it's gonna happen, and it happens.
I've felt something similar. Sometimes it's playing, sometimes it's coaching, but like at least for me, like there's some kind of like energy rift that just shifts. And it's not super vibrant, it's like, it's not obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's only me feeling it. And sometimes I don't think so, because I think this is a human thing, but there is some kind of shift. And I think I feel something similar sometimes, not always, but it does, like it's, you sense it almost.
Yeah, it's like in some moments where I'm like, I know I'm going to score here, and then it happens. And it's sometimes I don't have that feeling, and I score. So it's not like it's always correlated with the only times that I score. But
yeah, it's almost like matching your confidence with the energy that you have, and then it kind of just happens. I mean, at least for like playing. Coaching, it's a little bit different because there's a whole team, and you sense like something.
But
it's weird.
Yeah, but that's when you hear it in other sports, like they willed that into existence with like just their perseverance. Like if you just don't let anything of the game affect you in any way negatively, I'm going to carry my team with me, always lifting them up. Nothing that happens is going to faze me, and we're going to push through until the last whistle and give everything. Like that's when the magic comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I would say. Like I haven't done this like a coaching license thing, but if I had a philosophy, that's like all I want out of players is to do that, which is what we're trying to work on, I think. Because like one little ref call or somebody makes a bad pass, and it's just like we're checked out emotionally. We're just like, that stuff doesn't. We can work on that in practice. We're in a game right now. It's like,
well, that's the one thing.
Push through that.
The one thing that I really appreciate what you brought to the table is like 3 coaches is a lot. Obviously, we're in transition because you're leaving, Nick. But the one thing I really appreciate that you brought to the table is, like you said, when you face adversity, you always would fold. And that you're trying to get the kids to, like, realize that and, like, not do that.
Yeah, because I can blame all, there are out exterior forces that made me feel that way, but then at the end of the day, it is also your choice. Even at that young age, you can make those decisions to, like, I'm going to push through this, I'm going to fight through it, and it's going to be hard, but I'm going to choose to take on that pain.
And we talk about that and try to do that, but hearing it from you, from a different voice, for me, I know, and I'm sure with the boys, is got to be refreshing or like something different.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I think
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I think somehow just an adult sharing like a vulnerable moment that the team also is dealing with is something that, you know, young kids are pretty impressionable, so they trust what you're saying more when you share something vulnerable, because, you know, when you're vulnerable with somebody, you're putting your guard down. You're showing your mistakes when you don't have to. And bonding with somebody, that's super important, I think. And, you know, you have to be able to do that for people if you are trying to reach a common goal, even in like a relationship or in politics. Like, everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes. And yeah, I agree. Like, that's something you definitely are able to deliver, and it is refreshing, especially for me too. I forget how we got here.
I don't know. I mean, I just started talking about my philosophy in a way, and like willing things into existence. And another reason that I always like got interested in trying to find out how, if that was even possible for me, was obviously that 2010 World Cup moment. But then when I got into like cheering for Liverpool just based on picking a random team pretty much. And then I was looking up like some history of them, and I found this 10-minute video of like Mission Impossible in
One night in May
in 2005, AC Milan versus Liverpool, and I'm like, oh,
it's
what
pretty
happened
magical
here?
moment.
Yeah, so and then you look at the players that they were up against, like that was like the Real Madrid and a Barcelona squad on steroids times 2 the players that were on that AC Milan squad, and that's like Ancelotti prime coaching them, and they go down 3-0, and I mean it's over. Like we were down 3-0 today, and you know that's like, oh, it's time to check out. But then watching, like, you know, the captain, you know, Gerard leads by example, and just like, we're gonna get back into this, scores 1, and it's game on. It's just, we keep going, and then they get a second one, and a third one, goes all the way to overtime, into penalties. It's raining, it's cold, the fans are singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" like the whole time, just spurring them on, and they come back and win against like one of the best teams in the world at the time. And it's something that it just doesn't happen, or it's not likely, and you could have just folded that. And that's something in my life I guess maybe I identified with, because when I go 3-0 down, before I know that I'm going to fold and I'm going to check out, but then you see it happen, that it's possible, and I'm like, how can I always wanted to dig out those moments in the game, and I never knew how to do it. And then when I started having these feelings that you can just trust in, and then give yourself all to it, and then you see it come into existence, and you will these two, like a equalizing goal, or you make a chance and you guys have a comeback, or that indoor team we had when it was just, we were like Leicester City, just a bunch of misfits, and we're getting results because we're all putting it on the line. We have an absolute trust in our teammates to be where they need to be. Mistakes don't matter. We let in 3 goals, it doesn't matter. It's like, all right, we're still after it. And that's why I love the game, and being a part of those moments.
I think it would be valuable to talk about that team, but the indoor team rather, but like, I know, like, when my fiance or my boss at work asks me, oh, how was the game, I'm like, well, do you have 35 minutes to sit and talk about it? Because to me, and I know to you too, it's a game, sure. Yeah. And when the game ends, there's more important things happening. When the game starts, there's nothing more important than the game.
Right.
In the entire world, there's nothing more important. And I'm able to separate it. Okay, now the game's over. All right, let's get back to reality.
Right.
And like what you said, yeah, it's bigger than me. And that was the first game I ever watched with my dad, and I was like, who is this team, and what can I do to support them?
Yeah, exactly.
How can I contribute to this beautiful thing? But that indoor team was me playing and falling in love with the game, because I think we were coaching at that point.
Yeah, I think so.
And yeah, I mean, just the whole like I never really gave myself a chance, never really had a chance. I didn't have a lot of money growing up. My parents I didn't have like a specific talent. I didn't really, but like,
same boat.
The willpower and like the emotion and the passion for soccer is something that I could like, if you have those things, you always have a chance, no matter if you are 3-0 down.
Well, that's what's so great, because like even if people like everybody has those things, just maybe on different levels, but that's what makes it so human, is because I always say like every game's 50-50 no matter what, and it shifts depending on what the team wants. Do they want to win? Are they showing the will? Are they showing the emotion, but also the discipline to be solid and on one page of what everybody's doing? And it just creates so many magical moments. Like there's been so many, like the Liverpool-Milan game, that was a big one. Chelsea winning the Champions League in Bayern Munich against Bayern Munich in Munich.
Dude, that was magical. I watched that game.
That was, yeah.
And the fact that it was Drogba of all people in the last minute, and then he gets the final kick of the ball in the shootout.
Yeah, man.
I mean, you can't script it. It's beautiful.
Right.
You just can't script it.
Yeah, and that is the draw. That is
their whole journey to that final was unbelievable.
Oh my God!
Ahead to go through Barcelona as well.
The stories that come through playing soccer,
Yeah.
Torres of all people rounds. What's his Valdez after he was abysmal for Chelsea this whole time there, repaid the whole transfer fee in that one moment.
Yeah.
If I could give you guys anything, I'll get you to the final.
And it's not easy to beat like a really good team at home in a final. Like and they just kept playing the game. Like sometimes that's all it takes. Like just take a breath, think about what you need to do with and without the ball, and what are your strengths. Then like nobody expected Chelsea to pull that.
Right.
Absolutely not.
And I think you can take a little bit from what I mean, and I used to play like this too, and that's when I was at my very worst. Even later on when I got better, these were one of the times I'm out of form, is when you're in your own head thinking about the mistakes. When I play now, it's like therapy. Like I'm free, I'm expressing myself. And the same people were like, I like to go dance because like I feel like I'm expressing myself, or I like to paint, I'm expressing myself. When I'm on the pitch, I'm expressing myself. My mind is free. I'm only there are thoughts and stuff of what I can do, but it's when I'm letting go. Like there's I'm just in this different space.
And now that we're talking about it and coaching the same team, that might be a good point to bring up to the boys, just about how that is what it is for us. And I think sometimes when it's so serious, they get caught up thinking about the mistakes and thinking about.
They're a lot younger too, so I'm sure it's like everybody's
they might be
this stuff from us, and we say that too, but sometimes it doesn't click.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we need to do a better job of. Like, it's hard to find a balance between treating it seriously, because if we treat it seriously, like they could be a really good team,
right?
Or a really good team at times, but we don't want to suck all the fun out of it,
right?
So,
and they do like it as a kid. You want to be silly and you want to have fun, and when that chain reacts, like it's hard to get another grip on it. So, yeah.
It's a delicate balance. Because it's really to be relaxed in like a rec team, because there's no expectations. Parents aren't putting all this money into it. It's like you want to teach them something, and then when you don't show up with any intensity, it's like, okay, it's time to lay down the law, because it's.
Yeah. But that's the reason why we wanted you to coach with us, because you share the same ethos as we do. And for me personally, obviously I don't want Nick to go anywhere, but, I feel like I have a more than capable, companion as we move forward.
Yeah, you weren't gonna have anybody.
I was either like, no, I mean,
that's what I heard.
Yeah, I said I ain't coaching with. I'm not coaching with anybody. And then Nick was like, well, what about Nate? And I was like, all right, let me think about that. And I thought about it, and like it was like, my only concern is that we are very similar in how.
Yeah, no, I have the same. Not that that's like, I'm not saying it's bad because we are similar, but it's like. We don't have a Nick brain anymore. And
that's why I've been taking over the past couple week or so in training, because I need to get back to the thinking type planning. This is how we're going to tactically, because you're getting there, but you're not there yet, and that's how it is, and that's fine, But we thought of you instantly,
I'm honored.
So,
Yeah, no, they're both Liverpool fans, so that was that was an easy pick.
Yeah.
But I think when I think we were kind of going off of what you were saying about your background with playing in 2010 World Cup, and just around that time I was only getting into it too, and just the professionalism was kind of still a mystery about the sport, and that's when I started playing and really training, and then when Germany won 2014, like it was pretty unbelievable for me, just because I support them very strongly, and just because they have a very team. They're trained to have a very team reliant mentality, that everybody brings something to the table. Nobody's bigger than the team, and when players start acting like that, they're reminded of the camaraderie that is more important, that trumps one team having a really good player.
It's not a Messi-led Argentina or a Neymar-led Brazil. It's like, oh shit, we're playing Germany.
Right.
You're just looking at the whole squad, just at this complete kind of entity.
And they did drop out of that for a little while after they won the World Cup, because glory does do that to somebody, I think, if it's not handled delicately, because when you win on a big stage like that, the money comes, the attention comes, you're getting offers here and there, and just
Are you saying that happened to Mario Götze?
Oh,
or Germany in general?
I think a lot of their players, really. I mean, they kept trying to revamp the team with the players that won the World Cup in that year, and it wasn't really working. So it's just kind of don't rely on people that individually so much, because when you bring back players that want it, you have to bring back the whole team that want it.
Right.
Otherwise, you're missing some pieces.
And it's so hard in international because the tournaments are 2 years apart, 4 years apart.
Quality is so high too,
and you lose. What they were saying during the Euros, Turkey played pretty poorly, but there was that whole year delay on the tournament, and their qualifying going into it, they were red hot, that momentum, and then you don't get to play the tournament. It just gets lost sometimes, and I'm not trying to say that you can't rediscover it, but it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Is Denmark going to be able to have that kind of hotness when they go into the World Cup? Because they're playing fire right now in qualifying,
and they did well in the Euros.
Yeah, but then it's now this a whole bunch of time's going to go by before they get to play. Hopefully you can keep that, but that's very difficult to just hold on to at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Turkey's a team that I will never believe in. No,
this is where this comes in.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain teams that I will never believe in, and Turkey is one of them. As much as I would love to believe in Turkey, because I love their players, they have great players.
Yeah, I would too.
I remember when Burak Yilmaz and Selçuk Inan, Colin Kazim Richards. That was back when they had Arda Turan when he went to Barcelona. They had a stacked team, and they didn't do anything. And
so what does that come down to?
Well, I don't know, because I feel the same way about the Netherlands, and they have some of the best players in the world. Belgium. I never
believe in the Netherlands,
in
and the only reason they didn't win is because Virgil van Dijk was out.
Yeah,
I mean that's fair, and hopefully we'll see what happens. But I believe in Denmark more than I believe in Belgium or the Netherlands, because I saw Denmark get to the semifinals of the Euros.
Well, you see the belief,
right? And it's
when
an
they
emotional
play.
thing for me.
Yeah.
To me, it's I mean, but if I see Belgium in the semifinal of the World Cup against whoever, I'm going to take that other team. I'm not going to take Belgium. If it's Denmark, if it's Costa Rica, I'll take the other team. I won't take Belgium because of the emotion, and I don't know if it's the pressure or if they're just
Well, I think sometimes teams like Belgium or Netherlands, when they have high quality all around, they can be comfortable or arrogant or both. And when they go against an underdog team that doesn't have those same things, quality and technicality and good coaching staff and just well-rounded. Like you get comfortable when you have that stuff, and then when the team has to come in with a 50-50 chance, like you have to give that team, you have to root for that team for a little, like the underdog team a little bit, because anything can happen when you play with purpose and emotion. Like it happens, just like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, Neymar's Brazil lost 7-1 to Brazil.
Germany.
I mean, yeah, Neymar's Brazil lost 7-1 to Germany.
Yeah.
And Leo Messi's Argentina hasn't won the World Cup, and there's a reason for that.
Neymar was out of that game. Not saying they wouldn't. I don't think they would.
No, but I mean, I think it's the whole identity of like the team and like, what they're built around. And
they lose Neymar and go 7-1. Like you
and
still
they're crying
be letting
during
in
the
7 goals in.
They're crying during the national anthem because Neymar's injured, and then you hear the media, oh, Neymar this, Neymar that, Neymar's hair, Neymar's cleats, number. I don't know what number he is. I don't care enough about him, but they're not going to. When you have a player who's bigger than the team.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I believe more in Denmark than I do in Belgium, because I hear about Belgium, all these great players, all these amazing players. Well,
they have.
How are they as a team?
Yeah,
are they a good team?
Well, I mean, look at England. I would say that 2010 squad, or a little bit before or after, was immensely more talented. The one that just made it to a final, but they were more of a team as much as like England still does choke it away, like always, but. They made it to a final. That you didn't see Gerrard, Lampard, Beckham, Michael Carrick, all them.
Egos,
you didn't see John Terry and Ferdinand, Carragher, Glenn, and Ashley Cole and all them.
Yeah.
Like all these stacked players. Wayne Rooney, top of his game, and
they have a system.
No finals though. There's no finals there. There's a couple cool moments. Beckham gets them into the World Cup off a free kick against Greece or whatever, but then nothing. There's nothing. But that team was stacked with champions.
Yeah.
All champions in their domestic leagues and in their club teams and whatnot. But nothing internationally, because it's a team. If you're not a team, it's not happening.
Part of the philosophy for coaching for me also is that this team, you don't try, I think, not just for soccer, I think, for American football, I think coaches have a tendency to fit players into the system that they want to play. And Nick and I have always been, what do we have, number one? What shape, formation, style suits those players? Because the team we coached before the team we're coaching now played a completely different way because we weren't very good.
4-2-3-1.
And I think it was almost a 4-3-3.
That's what it evolved into,
right.
over time, yeah.
But it was completely different. So you have to kind of let your ego go and be like, all right, we need to see what the deal is. And
you could be like Pat,
I mean, and it took him time to get his team ready, and it works for him. But we don't have $100,000 million to do that. We have
you're right.
19 players who are quote unquote a B team, and all right, make it work.
Right. I mean, if Leicester City switched what they were doing, I'm sure it wouldn't have worked. They just everything fit together. We're doing a 4-4-2. This guy's gonna run around and win the ball, drink water. If you win it, you're playing it long. Tomorrow's down the right wing, and then he's gonna cross it in or score to Vardy. He's gonna cross into Vardy. He'll score, or he'll cut in and finesse it into the corner, and we'll do that over and over again.
Before Nick's trip to LBI, before we even coached this team, he was like, "I want to possess the ball. I want to create a passing. Blah blah blah." I don't know if you remember this conversation we had. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm trying to play like Iceland. But it turns out that the team that we have is good enough to play the way Nick wants. If they weren't good, we'd be playing like Iceland.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, if it's me, then my brain always wants to do Atletico Madrid 4-4-2, very disciplined. We shift right and left, and we don't give anything away. And then we'll frustrate them to death, and with our passion, we'll make a couple chances.
Score on a set piece.
So the two best players are the two strikers up top, and they'll make some magic. I just enjoyed the way that was breaking down the best of the teams. Like Atletico Madrid was.
Well, there's an emotional aspect to it too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They were making it to these finals against. I think Atletico Madrid went through Chelsea, Bayern, and Barcelona
Yeah.
back to back, and then they lost to Real Madrid sadly, but they took down all the top opposition to get there just because they weren't giving them an inch.
Well, I also think that they're a product of their environment because they're playing Barcelona, Real Madrid, La Real, Valencia,
right?
Especially Real Madrid, Barcelona. So, like,
they had to come up with a way to beat the best.
Right, exactly. Do you try to go toe to toe with Barcelona when Iniesta, Xavi, when they were all there, or do you try? How do we beat that?
Right.
You know.
But actually, that's not my only style of play. But that was I was like, oh,
right.
Really
No, it
good
makes sense.
results
Yeah, it
this
makes
way.
sense.
But
sure.
but if you can play a possession game, one and we're coaching U15, so I think what they're learning is going to be more whatever they want to do, but the next team that they're on, they're learning how to play the game the way it's supposed to be.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to talk about results based versus development in youth soccer, especially because I went to.
I have a rebuttal.
I'm insane about this, and I'm low key obsessed with GOT Soccer rankings, but pretend I'm not because they don't mean anything.
It's not low key to me.
And I went to a game. In this spring, I think, of two high ranked teams locally they were playing, and I wanted to watch, and I was like, all right, so this team's 10th ranked in the state, and regionally they're 25th. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
What does that look like? What's the eye test, right? And I saw some good things, but I saw very little that team did that we don't do, honestly. And we obviously don't always get the results we want.
Well, that has its own variables. It'll go back to results are important as they get older, but when they don't have the correct development early on, that's when it hurts. Especially with our team because they are talented kids, they're hardworking kids, but the coaching, at least here in the club or in the country or in the state, it's just it needs to start when kids are starting to play early on. They need to focus on touches, they need to focus on decision making, and then when teams are passed over to new coaches like me and Kyle, and then now we get a new team that we're going to be with for 3 years
or longer.
Yeah, we need to rely on their technical ability, and then when teams don't have that, it's just we might not win a whole lot of games, but we're gonna try.
Right.
And that's almost what you have to do. It's just there are so many things that you can do tactically to change things around and get the most advantages that you can out of what you have. But the technical is such an important foundation. It's just you see it when it's not there, you see it when it is, and you have to be able to know what to do with or without it.
As much as I talked about how my mentality helped my game when I was starting to be able to persevere through things and be more comfortable in who I am as a person, I did that first touch only got better when I started working on when I'm not in the game, working on my juggling and then going to the pitch on my own and working on placement. And
when we lived together, I got you guys to come out a few times.
Doing that kind of thing. But
against my better judgment,
if I never worked on my juggling, my first touch immediately got better. That I had more when the ball's playing into me, whether it's high or low. It's still not perfect, but now I'm more comfortable, and that helps me. Mostly I play center back now, and that helps me be comfortable back there instead of oh man, I don't know where the ball's
second guessing.
I don't know how the ball's coming in. If it comes in this way, I don't even know how to handle it. So there's still that aspect too. Yeah. So touches is so important because I didn't have that for the longest time. I need to tighten that thing.
No worries. We have a player on our team who's probably the fastest kid I've ever seen, and you could just tell that he's used to chasing the ball. And years ago, long before Nick, Nate, and I knew anything about this kid, there was a coach who didn't do anything about that.
Right. Because
he's so fast and they want to win. And that's kind of the qualm I'm getting about youth sports and success, results versus development. We see it literally seems like every week we're playing a team that I'm going to put my best player up here till they score, and then I'm going to put my best player back here to defend, and then the other guys are
just there
taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
It's I think it is changing, but there could be a lot more work and could be better funded, at least here in this country. But it's tough when you don't have it, because you got to make do with what you have, and you still got to care. You still got to, if one of your players or several of them need more technical time, like technical training, like you want to offer it to them. But it's tough, because that's your time and that's their time. If there's no mutual connection with that, they'll remain the same and maybe not get better. Maybe they will. Maybe not in the right ways. It's just it's tough, because at least for me, like, I care so much about like player development, just because like I had to train myself to get better onto a semi-professional team.
I'm a self-built player as well.
Yeah, and I'm just like, dude, like I need, like, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to like get it across to these players, because like maybe they don't understand like what it like what long-term results mean, because they're still so young.
Right.
I think it's a little bit of that.
What's your impression, Nate, of what are we 15, 20 games in now from youth soccer as a general? Like, I know you've had a little bit of coaching, but like, what's your impression of like what you've seen?
This team specifically? Or?
This teams we've played, tournaments, whatever you think.
It still goes back to a little bit what I saw when I was coaching at LS. I had like Gino was coaching these guys like how to really play, and they would put in like a really solid performance, and then like the same way that we're losing,
they'd lose.
We would lose like that 1 or 2 kick and run,
1-0,
2-0, just in a couple minutes it's just over, and then all that work kind of seems like for naught in a way. But I know if what they learned from him, I'm sure like made them all better players. So I think that we're doing it the right way, and I know we're going through some pretty heartbreaking results. But I think if they pursue, at least our kids specifically, if they, whether it's coaching or just playing it because they love it in life, like what they've learned now, like it's gonna help them. They're not gonna have to go like look for that, like Nick or I had to do, and like teach ourselves these things. They're playing just in recreational indoor leagues out of high school, or they're trying to pursue that later on. They're going to be on better teams that are going to be able to implement that. It's like, oh, this guy's looking for the pass, this guy's looking for the through ball. He knows how to communicate, he knows how to shield, and we can hold the ball, and instead of just, we're going to just keep kicking it up to the sky over and over again. If we just shift right and left and over the top, and we'll be fine, because you can drill a team defensively like pretty easily. I would say just make sure we can go right and left, and we don't come out of our line until we win the ball back and do a quick counter and over the top, which is exactly what we played against today.
Right.
Just discipline, back and forth, be physical. Easy to convince kids to do that. Especially you got big physical guys. Like, hey, just go out muscle these small kids. Like it's gonna be, if you can weather those storms, and we're trying to break that down. Which you even see professional teams like when Liverpool. Sometimes how talented they are. If somebody they're all behind the ball and just disciplined, like it's hard to break that down, and they're trying to break that down, and they're still like just getting their grip on what soccer is all about. I'm quite impressed, and I think it is more about development. So, but that is mostly what we see. At least I've seen in LS. Yeah. So like you why we talk about it's like U.S. is a long way away from winning a World Cup, but we are having at least more foreign players now. So at least they're learning the right way somewhere else.
Yeah, seriously, that's a good point.
But that gets me to the point, because this is kind of like a finally getting together with you guys, and Nick, we know, is leaving us here to go pursue some life over in Germany.
The German.
So I want to hear a little bit about what your vision is, why you're going over
Yeah,
there.
spill the beans.
Before we close up here.
Well, I mean, I started reading up on. Well, in general, I started reading a lot more the past few years, and just the amount of knowledge, and those books have mainly been on soccer topics, and sometimes just human topics, and I've been just learning so much about like how important culture is to everything. Like it, just how the Netherlands, the way they play is reflective of their culture, and I actually learned about it in the book that I just gave you guys, called
Brilliant Orange.
Yeah, Brilliant Orange, and it just goes into depth about how the style over there in the Netherlands is so reflective of everything there, like the architecture, the way the language is spoken and structured, and they have such a strong sense of collectivism that is why they are so fluidly like together when they play. And that's why I love watching Ajax so much, because you can see it. And when you have all of those things, nobody's bigger than the team. And when you have that, the trust is then the glue for that team to just keep playing that way. And it's so impressive. And obviously, like you guys said, I'm not going to the Netherlands, but I do think that there is some important things to expose myself to in a different culture, in a football culture, and I'm just really excited to just be exposed to that. And like my long-term goal is a bachelor degree in sports science, but even if that fails, like just the exposure is going to be worth just being around. And there's so many different styles and just so many different cultures that like each one is reflective in a different way, and it's so cool to experience and just to read about, let alone, it's just. And one of the other books that I read was Das Reboot, and that was after Germany didn't like make it to the final in 2010. They were like, okay, we got to restructure some things too.
Well, how far did they get? They didn't do very well at all, right?
I think it was.
They lost in the semis, I believe, to Spain.
Yeah, that's what it was. After that,
1-0 Pujols, Puyol, how do you say his last name?
Yeah, Puyol. Yeah,
one header and on a corner. That was it.
Yeah, and something triggered. I don't remember specifically, but something. Like they all of a sudden the DFB, the German Football Association, they were like, okay, we need to put more into this because we identify strongly with football and we love it. It's part of our culture. So they changed things around. They really focused on their academies. They really focused on their player development, and when players started giving teams results, they had a winning team in 2014, and it was really impressive to read about because there's so many team elements involved that you don't see or you don't hear about on the television. And it's like, it comes down to the relationship between a center back and a striker sometimes to get the goal that you need. And like reading about that stuff was just so eye-opening. I'm just like, wow, like this is about human science. This is about relationships. This is about trust between people. And that's what really inspires me from this sport. It's just it brings those things to life when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And reading about that and how they were just kind of the first European team to win a World Cup outside of Europe in South America was like watching it on the television, you know, you're just like, all right, that happened. That was great. You know, looking forward to next World Cup. But like the amount of work that was put in, like it was pretty unbelievable. Like, you know, it wasn't always looking up for them during that World Cup.
And Gutsa was the guy who didn't play.
Yeah, he was a sub in the final.
And he didn't really play the whole tournament, right?
No, not really. And just all the reading I've been doing, just it opened me up to just, you know, if you don't, it really it moved me in the way that I was just like, all right, there's things that I want to be exposed to, there's things I want to learn, like, and learning another language was always on my bucket list because it makes your brain function in a different way. It makes it more open, and it makes it open to things being translated differently and just being said differently. And so that fell in pretty well with learning German in high school because it came a little easier than French did. And most of my family is of German descent, so it almost felt like I was connecting with a bit of my past.
Some DNA in there that's like, we know this.
Go back to the motherland.
Yeah, there's just so many variables that help me decide to do this. I mean, it's the biggest thing I've ever done. It's just, I don't know. Just the inspiration for that was just a lot of reading, a lot of curiosity, and just wanting to learn more. Because, I mean, like, I want to be able to offer players and anybody like that's involved with the sport, or, you know, or I have like a friendship or relationship with the things that come along with trying to become a better coach. Like, I want to offer people the information that they need to get better, or, you know, just understand the game better tactically or on a biological level. Or, you know, it's tough because I've never been academically like great, like especially in high school, and like schooling has always been very intimidating because I never had confidence in my own knowledge or
but now it seems like you have an appetite to learn.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Helps so much.
And yeah, it does. It really does, because even when you don't feel like doing it, as soon as you start doing it, it doesn't matter, because like you just start enjoying it. And it's such a great feeling, because like it's just something as simple as like watching like a training video on YouTube of like Dortmund or Bayern Munich or Liverpool or Chelsea. Like, just watching professionals do it, it's just like you see some details that are like, oh wow, like that kind of quality is just, it's sometimes unseen, but that's why those players are there, because they've earned it. They've tried really hard. They love the sport enough, and just have had the right amount of support, maybe from what they're been surrounded by their whole lives. But it's just tough. And I came to like a thought around like last year about like, if I don't do this, like pursue this appetite, that I will definitely regret for the rest of my life. And like working my day job, I just don't want to do that anymore.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was just like, all right, that's it. Like, I have to go do it now. And I also just want more resolve. You know, like sometimes there's been times where I just haven't trusted myself with some things, and doing this, like, and just trying this, and it's probably not even that big of a thing, but like just trying and maybe even failing is just going to give me like more experience in myself, just knowing myself a little bit better.
I mean, it's inspiring you doing this. Everything you just said is the embodiment of what I'm doing right now. Like, I don't know where I'm going with having these mics and this table here, and
Right.
I'm just going into uncharted territories. And if people respond to the conversations I have on here, then great. If I fail, then I'm glad I went for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have really great, tremendous respect for both of you guys. I mean,
Thanks, buddy. I have a lot of respect for you too.
I feel like I have something to say about this, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, I remember you were talking about this when we were sitting outside at Weaver parking lot when we were coaching rec. You were talking about how you thought you might want to go to Germany in the future, and I was always just like,
well, I don't remember that.
Yeah, cool, man.
That's
you know,
sweet.
and I was always just like, and that was when I was getting to know you. So and now you're doing it, and I'm, been very reflective lately, especially like, I'm thinking like, was this morning, was that the last game that we'll ever coach? I don't know.
I want to say, hopefully, probably not. I'd like to come back
this weekend.
Right. I just gotta sign that waiver.
But no, like the one thing that you've really done for me is you put things simply, and you've given me a professional approach to coaching, a methodical, calculated approach that I didn't have. Because I like to be, I'm just different than that. So I really, really appreciate that, and I couldn't be more proud of you for everything that you're doing and following your dreams. Truly, I mean that.
Thanks, buddy.
I might cry.
And the same thing for you, you know what I mean? Yours is a different kind of dream, but it's also not, Nate. Like, it's, it sounds kind of ridiculous that you're going to move home and start a podcast and try to get involved in local government, Yeah. If you were to tell that to a normal person, they'd be like, man, what's up with that kid?
He didn't go to college and doesn't work in an office?
Right.
Yeah.
But again, like, you're following your dreams, and I have tremendous respect for that. And I feel like, especially the past year and a half, like, I've been going in the opposite direction because I'm becoming, I don't want to say that you guys aren't stable, because that's not what I mean.
Oh, I'm definitely not
But
stable.
you guys are taking risks that I'm not. And it just makes me think about like what I'm doing in my life and like what I can do more to follow what I want to do, coaching and writing, the two big things. So yeah, I think it's great to have you guys in my life and like be a driving force behind like something that I want to do.
Yeah.
Inspire me, So
I mean, it's important to have people like you guys around, just because it's really important to just surround yourself with people that disagree with everything you say. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but I mean the opposite of that. Like living with you guys was great, and I feel like when you came to us with like I want to go to Germany, I felt like I tried to be like supportive of that, and like,
even though I didn't understand it,
right?
fully.
But just like, but it's what you want to do. You should go for it. And when I came, like I'm starting this podcast out of my apartment or whatever, like I was like, yeah, I'll be on it with you. And like he was on the first episode, like supporting it, and
which was great.
You guys, the stuff that I'm looking into, you guys were having conversations with me about it, and it's like it's a little differently geared than it was then, but there was like support there, and not just just do whatever you want, but it's like it's just what you want to do, and,
right?
And just being supportive that way, which is I think is really great and what people need, and that goes back into just also like why I can just anything that's about soccer is about life, and that's what life is about. That's what it takes in soccer to be successful, and that's what it takes to be successful in life. What success looks like to you, not this world definition of success is like what is it? What's ingrained in you to do? Go do that. Right,
and coaching just pushes me to be like a better version of myself, and that's just another reason why I want to coach. I love soccer. That's just another variable.
Do any of you guys have any closing remarks that anything you want to get out there, Nick, especially for you, since you're the one departing? If not, I'll have a little closing statement here and wrap it up.
I just think of fuck that team. I mean that was fucked up. That team on last Sunday night, I just fucked them. The Mexican food was good though.
It was really good.
But the result was bitter. Today was more or less the same.
Yeah. Losses are never easy. I don't know. I mean, I've never had a high regard of myself, so it's really it's really important to me to have people's support, because I've never had any kind of self-belief. And for the first time in my life, I think I finally do. And like, it's, yeah, just find that self-belief, I guess. Yeah.
All right, Nick, we're going to miss you. We miss you, wish you all the best. We hope you come back one day to fix everything wrong with American soccer, become the president of the whatever I don't even know what the U.S. Soccer Federation's even called, but
that's a big shoe.
No, but you're gonna. I'm excited for you. Excited to see what you learn, and excited to keep in contact, keep up to date with what's going on, and just proud that you come to that point where you can have that kind of confidence in yourself, because I feel like we've all come from that, like who the hell are we, how do we function, like everybody else is just different.
Sure.
Like, what am I, and I don't have any of these skills, but it's never too late in life. Like, we're all in our later 20s and getting to that, which is okay. Like, obviously we would all probably wish to have been in that mindset at a younger age, but it doesn't matter,
right?
And that's why we want to encourage the team that we coach to find that now, because you don't have to wait. You can. It's not that you have to be an adult, but that you can be who you're supposed to be and be working on that specifically, and being okay with who you are earlier, so that you don't have to wait until this to do that. It's like, learn from us in that way. But this has been For a Better Day podcast. I'm so thankful to have been joined by my good friends Nick and Kyle.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.
Nate.
Thanks for being on, guys.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Love you too.
See you guys next time.